Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. Some time ago I was given these. These are Hornady XTP 25 Auto with a 35 grain XTP bullet. And these have a very credible looking little hollow point, full metal case hollow point, or jacketed hollow point. And they look pretty good. Now I have used this bullet in a cartridge called 251 TCR, and when fired out of a 3.5-inch revolver barrel at 1,300 feet per second, these had really good penetration and expanded to about 32 caliber, which is pretty good for a bullet with a .251 diameter. And they penetrated 12 to 13 inches through 4 layers of denim in clear ballistics gel. So, driven fast enough, the bullet works. The question is, does a 25 Auto drive it fast enough? Now, my inclination initially was to say, no, it does not. So I decided to test this with a Browning Baby with a 2-inch barrel and a Beretta Moto 418 with a 2.5-inch barrel. Now, there's only a 1/2-inch difference in the two barrel lengths, but when you're small, any difference is large. And they are small. Just for giggles, I decided to test my standard load. And this is from Rimrock Bullets. This is a nominally 60 grain hard cast lead bullet with a flat point. And it actually performs quite well in terms of penetration out of buffalo boar's load, which is what this is made for. Now I say nominally 60 grains because after weighing a selection of these bullets, and Rimrock says they're 55 grain, but after weighing a bunch of them, they vary from 59.1 to 59.3 grains. Very little variation, very consistent. Kudos to you, Rimrock Bullets. These are great. And I've used them extensively in my Wildcat cartridge 251 TCR. And they've always turned in very good performance. Buffalo Boar loads them pretty hot. And as I said, their rounds and tests have done very well, given that they're 25 Auto. So, first thing to do is find out how fast they're stepping out and what kind of energy they're making. And that means a trip to the range to chronograph them with the Garmin radar chronograph. Okay, testing the Hornady 35 grain XTP 25 ACP from the Browning Baby. Let's have a look and see how it does. Once again, shooting the Baby Browning, this time with the 60 grain lead flat point over 1.2 grains of red dot with the CCI 500 small pistol primer. Let's see how this does. That feels a little peppier. All right, here we go. So I'll put up a card with the figures on it in a minute. But from the Hornady XTP 35 grain from the Browning Baby made 755 feet per second. From the Beretta with a half-inch more barrel, it made 979. Now, these are both blowback pistols, and how fast they open and various other details about them, the exact specification of the barrels can make a difference. So it may be more than just that extra half-inch of barrel. So 755 from the Browning, 979 from the Beretta. Now, my load with the 60 grain hardcast flat point, on top of 1.2 grains of red dot, made 761 feet per second out of the Browning Baby and 831 feet per second from the Beretta. Now, I have tested this load from the Beretta in gel and got shockingly good penetration, anywhere from 14, 15 inches, which was really quite impressive. And after penetrating 4 layers of denim. So that's pretty good load. I mean, given that you're unlikely to get expansion from a hollow point at these kind of velocities, but maybe we will. So I used the Beretta for this test because it got notably higher velocity and energy than the Browning Baby with the XTP round, and fired it through 4 layers of denim into clear ballistics gel. Let's have a look at how that went. Okay, this gel block is pretty shot up, but it looks like I can sneak one in back in this corner. So let's give that a shot. See if we can get a useful result. That looked pretty good from my end. And let's have a look at what it did in the gel. So here is our projectile. It appears to be facing backwards. Let's measure that. Penetration looks like 10. No, that is legit. 12 inches of penetration before the bounce back. So that's actually pretty impressive that it penetrated that far with such a light bullet. Let's go ahead and pull that out and have a look at it. So the bullet caused a fair amount of disruption here where it flipped end for end, and it did wind up facing backwards in the gel. And as you can see, there is not even a pretense of expansion. It's just that hole may be a slightly larger than it was when the bullet was fired, but it did not expand. So basically there was no meaningful expansion. The hollow point did open up fractionally, but it did not expand, it did not mushroom. And honestly, that's kind of what I expected, because these are awfully small guns. It's not moving real fast, and that hollow point opening is not necessarily very small because the bullet is very small. So, it got 12 inches of penetration. The tumbling created a significant zone of disruption in the gel and probably wouldn't do actual human flesh any favors. So, it's not... The Hornady XTP 35 grain does not appear to be a bad choice. I would consider it a bad choice out of this because with a significant difference in velocity, it's not going to get the penetration that it did out of the Beretta. So as far as the rimrock loads, as I said, I've previously tested them, and they perform very well out of my hand load with 1.2 grains of red dot. And they feed and cycle well in my 25 autos. Now, the buffalo bore version is a bit hotter than mine. And at least I think it is. And so it, is going to penetrate even better. And let's face it, with these tiny little guns, penetration is where it's at, because you're not going to get expansion even if you do. It's like I said, at 1,300 feet per second, 13 to 1,400 feet per second, these only expand to about 32 caliber, which is still tiny. So I think you're probably better off going with solids if you carry a gun like this. That is certainly the advice for 22 long rifle handguns in most cases. And it's interesting to me that people who have Ruger LCP 22s sneer at guns like this as being completely inadequate, despite the fact that in ballistics gel, there's hardly a nickel's worth of difference in the performance. And certainly 25 ACP is a lot more reliable. Now, I don't advocate anyone use a 22 long rifle or a 25 ACP as a primary EDC. It's just a very dubious proposition and very dependent on hot shot placement, which at any range beyond point blank, tiny guns like these are kind of ill-suited to produce, unless you practice a stupid amount with them. We don't know anyone who does that. Anyway, so there's your result. The XTP is not a bad choice because it does get adequate penetration. The buffalo bore is undoubtedly a better choice, but you want to shoot it out of a high-quality gun, and most of your high-quality 25s are getting a bit long in the tooth. So you pays your money, you takes your chances. Also, the buffalo bore is very expensive, relatively speaking. That's why I hand load. Yes, I hand load 25 ACP, of course I do. So anyway, there you have it. That's the results. And do with it what you want and make of it what you will. Anyway, I'd shout out to my supporters on Patreon. It's very much a shoestring operation, and your contributions help more than you know. I'd also like to thank channel benefactors, those individuals and businesses who have helped the channel in innumerable ways and really helped make it work. And thanks especially to the person who donated these to the channel for me to test out. So, I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you again real soon.